Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on using Flipgrid to teach reading. I tried to come up with a different kind of approach when talking about integrating literacy strategies in the classroom or the library and focusing on implementing those strategies using a specific technology tool like Flipgrid. So today we will still be discussing specific literacy strategies. However, I wanted to put again the focus on how we could also use a technology tool to do that virtually instead of the traditional way. So, thinking about Flipgrid, first of all, I want to just go over some of the benefits of using Flipgrid in the classroom and some ways that it can make the classroom and assignments for students and for teachers either more beneficial or, I don't want to say easier, but more efficient. So the first thing is that it's very easy to use. It is very simple. It's very similar to other social media platforms that middle school and high school students are always using today. It has the single sign-on capability. So if you are a Google school or any kind of school where you use Clever or any kind of thing like that, then you have the capability for the single sign-on. So that's really simple for students to log in. They don't have to remember another login or another password. It can also improve speaking and listening skills. This may be may cause a little anxiety for some of our students who don't like being in front of the camera, but later on we will talk about some of the features that Flipgrid has that can help ease that anxiety and make them feel more comfortable being in front of the camera and posting videos for their teacher or peers to see. The next thing is that peers can interact with each other. So they post videos with each other. We'll talk about how it works a little bit later, but they can interact with each other and basically have immediate feedback with each other if the setting is set that way by the teacher. It's also accessible on all devices, whether it is a Chromebook, a laptop, a desktop computer, an iPad or a tablet, or even a mobile phone. So there are all kinds of ways to access Flipgrid and be able to implement these literacy strategies that we're going to talk about. Some other things that I didn't put on the slide, but that are things to note are that you can create small groups and you can choose which groups that you would like to put students in. It can also support our ELL students. Teachers can also post video or text instructions. You can do both or one or the other for student responses. So it could also almost be like a virtual video introduction between the teacher and the student. And I think sometimes that helps students understand what they are supposed to do if they can hear the teacher talking rather than just reading a set of directions. There are also some accessibility features like a screen reader, magnifier, and different things like that for students with disabilities or students who need accommodations. There are also guests that can be invited with a link and a password. So if you want to invite experts, maybe you're doing a unit on crime scene investigations and you want to invite an expert to speak on that. Or if you're doing a unit on an author study and you were able to get the author to maybe provide some feedback on book reviews or book talks or some kind of commercial that kids are going to be doing for their project, you could invite the author or some other kind of guest to do videos and reply back to students' work also. The best thing that I love about Flipgrid and how many resources it has is that it has a discovery library, or what they call the DISCO library, has thousands of topics that are created and shared by teachers today. And they're from all over the world. So they're already created. All you have to do, if you like exactly how it is just add it to your page and assign it to your students, and it's ready to go for you. You can also take those topics that teachers have already created and edit them, make it your own, change anything however you want to, but there's all kinds that you can, start off with as and have like a base for you to start off with. Moving on, we are going to look at some of the ideas and literacy strategies that you could use Flipgrid for in the non-traditional way and using a virtual tool such as Flipgrid. So the first one is book talks. I think that book talks are a great use for Flipgrid. Book talks are basically just short commercials or presentations about a book, and you're trying to convince other people to read it. So it's not a formal book review or a formal book report like after you finish reading the book, but it's basically just trying to get, you say, I really love this book and I want other kids to read this. I think my friends would really love to read this. That's basically what a book talk is. A sample book talk may include like the title of the book, the author, how many pages the book is, maybe a little bit of information about the author, a quick summary of the book that's 1 to 2 paragraphs, connections to the book that you made as a reader. So maybe this book really touched you or you really connected with it because of some kind of personal thing that happened in your life that made you feel the same way as one of the characters did. You could also read a passage to the class or on Flipgrid and explain why you chose it and give a recommendation of who might enjoy this book. So book talks would be a great way and a great literacy strategy that you could use and implement with Flipgrid. You could also, one cool thing about Flipgrid is that it has the ability to design QR codes automatically whenever you create a video, and you can just print those QR codes out. You can tape them on a book. So then if kids are asking, what's this book about? You can say, well, there's a QR code on there, which means that one of our students has already completed a book talk on it, and they would like for you to read this book, and here's why. They can scan the QR code, they can watch the book talk, and it's a great way to get other kids interested in reading and encourage other students to read some of these books as well. Going on. So read alouds is another literacy strategy that you can use with Flipgrid. So our traditional read alouds are very beneficial for students of any age, especially elementary and even middle school students. We'll talk about that here in just a few minutes, but for read alouds, you think about it as your typical traditional, the kids are sitting around and the teacher is reading a book, and then you stop and ask discussion questions throughout the book and try to have kids interact with you as you're reading. With Flipgrid, you could still do this. You could still have a read aloud and provide some questions at the end that you would like for other people to answer. And the replies on Flipgrid could be their replies to the questions that you're asking about the book. So some things and some research that I found about read alouds. I am a first year library media specialist in our upper elementary and middle school, which would be grades 3rd through 8th grade. So it's a very big range of students, and we have a very wide range of books in the library. Or I know that a lot of our middle school kids, they don't come in and check out books a whole lot anymore, and they think of picture books or any kind of everybody book that you can just read aloud as little kid books. However, I know that that's not the case, and there are some really great read aloud books or everybody books. And so my research focused on how read alouds can benefit middle school students. So some things that it can do is that it can improve comprehension, introduce vocabulary to them. It models fluent and expressive reading whenever you have an adult or a fluent and expressive reader reading it. Provides opportunities for enjoyment for reading. So kids get the chance to just listen and not have to worry about messing a word up or trying to understand, decipher or decode words as they're reading. Many times read alouds are associated with elementary age students. However, there are great benefits of using them with middle schoolers. So this is a quote that I found from one of the articles that I was using for research that says, As reading and listening skills do not normally converge until around 8th grade, it stands to reason that reading to children is an activity that does not have an expiration date. Students who are read to are exposed to new and interesting experiences with literature that they may not have otherwise had access to if forced to read everything independently. This is also a time for middle school students to just enjoy the literature. And I think that that doesn't happen a lot. You have your kids who enjoy reading and who enjoy finding new books, but there are not very many times that you can have a majority of your class actually enjoy what they're reading or listening to. The next literacy activity that I would like to talk about is book clubs. Book clubs are another literacy strategy that are used in the traditional classroom, but they can also be completed and done on Flipgrid. Book clubs are basically reading groups made up of students who are reading the same book and have discussions with each other. I know that there's lots of different ways to do book clubs, and there's lots of different ways that people have done them in the past. But I feel like this is probably the more traditional kind of book club, and I know a lot of people have changed things since then. Um, Here are some examples of things that you may want to think about if you're going to run a book club. And we'll talk about how you can do this with Flipgrid in just a second. So first, decide if you will choose the book or if your students will choose the book, if it'll be student choice, and how you will let them choose. Decide how you will assign students to groups. You need to establish reading times and pages each week. So for student choice and assigning groups, there's one teacher I know that does a quick book talk of all the books that she has available. And students kind of fill out like a form that rates their top 5 picks. And then she tries to group the kids based on their interests or their book choice that they want to read as well as she can. As for reading times and pages and how often they should read each week, I think the first thing you really need to think about is how long is your unit? Is it going to be 4 weeks, 5 weeks, just a 2 or 3 week unit? For older students, they can usually figure out how many pages or how many chapters they need to read each week in order to complete the book in time. And in order to finish their discussions. For younger students, you may need to be a little bit more explicit about that and maybe make a timeline for them. Like, we have 4 weeks and your book is 300 pages long. So we are going to read, at least 50 pages a week or 75 pages a week or however many you need to get through. Assign weekly questions for students to discuss about their novel. Some of these questions could be, what is the setting? How does it add or take away from the story? Which character do you like the most or the least? And it goes on. But students can use Flipgrid to respond to those questions, and they can reply to each other's videos and kind of have this discussion on Flipgrid instead of in person. So that's just another way to, if you can't necessarily meet in person, maybe it's an after school book club and you don't have time during the day in your regular schedule, a virtual book club may be something that you could look into and use Flipgrid for. Some other ideas are digital storytelling is a literacy strategy for students in learning literacy and using reading in the classroom. And students can create and present a digital story that includes a beginning, middle, and end. And then they could do this in their video through Flipgrid, and peers can provide alternate endings or additional characters as replies to their original video. A vocabulary word wall is another idea I've seen a couple of other teachers use before. So basically, students just record a video of themselves using a vocabulary word and defining it and then using it in a sentence. And on Flipgrid, you can add all of these different text features, and they can add text and stickers, images. They can even add links to videos or anything like that to help show the meaning of the word, of their vocabulary word. Another literacy strategy is book reports. And I feel like this is more of a formal thing that kids usually used to do. I know I used to do it in school. I don't feel like it's huge anymore, but if you do still do book reports at the end of reading a book, you can have students create a non-traditional book report by recording their report on Flipgrid instead of filling out a paper or writing an essay over it. You can have them record what they thought about the book, or have a graphic organizer, a more explicit rubric of what you would like for them to do. So Flipgrid how-to for teachers, you basically just log on, create an account. You can use your school account, your personal account, a Google account, Microsoft account, whatever works for you. You create a group, and the groups are basically like, it can be your entire class. It can be a small group of students. Like if you're doing book clubs, you would do a different group for each book club. You, in each group name, would have a unique join code. So only the students who are in that group would have access to that group, unless you gave other people access. Within those groups, you would create topics, and those topics are basically the assignment. You can set the recording time from 15 seconds to 10 minutes. And topic moderation is basically where you can approve, you have a setting to have all video submissions sent to you first, and you have to approve them before they are posted. So if you have students who, if you have a class who may not follow the rules, or you're worried about some of the things that they may say or put on their video, you can certainly monitor that before those become active. For media, whenever you're adding an assignment, you can record a video with your directions. You can upload a video that you would like students to watch. You can add links to websites that you want students to view. You can embed videos from YouTube, add images or GIFs or emojis, anything that would help describe your assignment to the students the best that you can. And then finally, you can share your group with the link with a QR code through Google Classroom. It'll upload straight to Google Classroom from Flipgrid, excuse me. You can embed it, or you could use Remind or Twitter or other things. The next slide is a nice little Flipgrid how-to for students. I have used this very same one with my students in the past. And it's super easy because, especially when we're using the iPads, it gives the students a step-by-step process of what exactly they need to do in order to post their Flipgrid videos. This is good for students when they first get started, but obviously whenever students have some practice with Flipgrid, and if they're using it on a regular basis, they're going to end up knowing how to do this. But I think this is a great resource to use if you are going to use Flipgrid for students when they're first using it. So some other resources, I have a link here, 50 ways to use Flipgrid. And this is a teacher who has used Flipgrid in many subjects in her classroom. I have actually used several of these in the past. And sorry, I'm going to try to pull this up for you. I've used several of these ideas in the past. The kids seem to love them. So here is the website. It is on a website called Ditch That Textbook. And if you scroll down, this is by Carly Mora, who is a teacher in California. And if you scroll down, the best thing that I love about it is kind of has a table of contents, sort of, with links, hyperlinks to each of these. So when that catches your eye, you can go to it. And it's kind of separated by subjects. So if you are a certain content area like social studies or science, you can certainly go to those. But she does have some really cool ones for literacy and reading. I really liked the 30-second book talk challenge, which is this one. And it's just basically the kids doing a book talk, but doing it in 30 seconds or less. So that is Flipgrid and using different reading strategies. Let me go back to our table of contents to review them. So our book talks, read alouds, book clubs, digital storytelling, vocabulary word wall, and book reports are all literacy strategies that you can use non-traditionally using Flipgrid, and ways that you can incorporate them with your classroom or in the library. I do have a quick follow-up activity after we are finished here. If you would take a few minutes and fill that out for me, I would love to know what I could do better or how much this PD helped you today. I hope to see you soon, and thank you so much.